Hi, I'm Kimberly Allison from Starliner Music. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to continue with my series entitled Blues Solos with Comping. In this series we learn how to go back and forth from lead guitar to rhythm guitar accompaniment, otherwise known as comping. First, I'll perform Blues Solo with Comping in the key of E, number 11, and then I'll break it down for you. Here we go. I hope you enjoy it. Alright, let's break down Blues Solo with Comping in the key of E, number 11. In these exercises, we go back and forth from lead guitar to rhythm guitar accompaniment, also known as comping. So I'll play a lick, and then I'll go to the rhythm guitar and alternate back and forth from lead guitar to comping within a 12-bar blues. So I've divided that 12-bar blues into 3 parts, and in this exercise, we'll be using the E major pentatonic, with the inclusion of the major blue note, which is a G natural in the key of E. So the major blue note just makes the scale a little more bluesy, a little easier to use in this context. We'll be playing at the 7th fret around where the E chord looks like an A. So that's here. And for those of you studying caged, this is the A-shaped E scale. So this is E major pentatonic in the A form, and the fingering looks like this. Now let's break down part 1. Here's part 1. So we're going to start off with the chromatic portion of this major pentatonic with the blue note, the major blue note in it. And so we're going to go chromatically between the 7th and 9th fret on the 2nd string. And then we're going to go up to the 1st string 7th fret, and then back down chromatically, and continuing down the scale. And then we're going to jump to that blue note and give it a little bend. So essentially what we're doing is bending the minor third of the scale toward the major third. Now remember that the major third is a chord tone. It's in an E chord here. And so it helps when you're soloing to incorporate chord tones, especially beginning or ending a phrase on a chord tone. So we're ending our lick on this chord tone, bending the G natural toward the G sharp. And then we'll go over to the comping. So the comping is going to be an E9th voicing. This is a very common one. And so we're at the 7th fret here. First we'll play the open E, and then we'll approach from a half step underneath. So that's our comping. Let's put that together. On to the next part of this this first 4 bars. Then we're going to start with a half step bend. Now this half step bend is important because we're bending in again into a chord tone. If you think about an E7th chord, the 7th is there, so we're bending this note into the 7th of the chord. So we're starting our phrase or our lick on a chord tone, and then we're going to bend that G natural again toward the G sharp. So then we're going to do a little finger roll here and come down to the 6th fret, and then end on the root. And go back to the comping. Let's put the first part together. On to part 2. Here's part 2. So we're starting at the top of our pattern and coming down the major pentatonic scale. But notice I'm going to skip over this note. This is the major third of E. That's the G sharp. Now I'm skipping over this because I'm anticipating the harmony of the next bar. So what that means is the next bar is going to be an A7th chord, and I'm really playing toward that A7 a little bit early, so I'm choosing to use the G natural instead. So if I come down the scale, here's the G natural. And notice that the G natural is part of an A7th chord. So if you finger an A7th chord like this, 7th is this G natural right here under my pinky. So I'm really choosing my notes because I'm leading into A and I want to sort of introduce the A a little bit early. So coming down the E major blues, or the E major pentatonic with the major blue note. So notice we had a pull off here. And then we have a little slide. So again, I'm using that major blue note, which is a G natural. Now, I had mentioned before when I showed you the fingering for the pattern that you could finger it like this. The G natural here, but I'm fingering it here because I want to slide into it. So here's the slide, and then I'm ending on the note E. So I'm ending on the note E here because I'm landing on the 5th of an A chord, the A7th chord. So if you imagine your A7, the E is part of that chord. So I'm using the chord tone here to announce my chord change to A. And then I'm going to go to the comping. So the comping is going to be like this. We have an abbreviated A9th type voicing here. This actually is an E minor triad. However, when you hear this triad against an A chord or an A bass note, it implies an A9th chord because against an A we have the flatted 7, and then we have the 2, that's the same as the 9, and then we have a 5. So this is enough to suggest A9. So I'm going to approach that from a half step underneath, so I hit the bass note A and approach chromatically. So let's put that together. Now the next lick is heading back toward E. That's our one chord. I'm going to start here on the root E and then go into a half step bend. And this half step bend is bending into the minor pentatonic. And then back up the scale. So we put that together. And then I'm back into the E comping. Let's put the whole second part together. Now, on to part 3. Here's part 3. So in part 3, we're going to go right up the scale, starting at the 5th of the scale. Now this makes a lot of sense because we're going to be playing over the 5 chord here. So we're leading into that 5 chord, starting on the 5th of the scale, B. So starting on the note B, leading into the chord B, playing up the scale. And also ending now on the note B. So when we land on this B, we are now officially on the B chord change. So at that point, we'll go to the comping and outline the changes moving down. So we're going to play this. Now these are 9th chord voicings. They are rootless 9th chord voicings. Sometimes I thumb over. The root would be, in this case, B. But for this example, I'm not thumbing over at all. This is a rootless B9. And then we're going to move it down chromatically to an A9. So that's the 5 moving down to the 4 chord. And then we're going to go back to our major pentatonic here. And the lick is... So at this point I'm on an A chord and I'm starting on the note E, which is part of my chord, going to the C sharp, which is part of my chord, and going to a B, which is the 9th on my A 9th chord. So I'm using chord tones here, even though I'm in the E major pentatonic. I'm choosing my notes carefully. And after this, we're going to use that G natural again and slide into it, again over here. So the G natural is part of the A 7th chord, coming down the scale and landing on the root E. So when I land on the root E, now I'm back to the E chord. And then I have a bit of a single note style turnaround. So I'm going to start here at the 6th fret on the G sharp. That's a triplet. Now the next triplet is actually stealing a note. This note is not in the major pentatonic at all. This is an A, and it's part of the minor pentatonic. And then I'm going to play, which is actually an A major triad arpeggio, 1, 3, 5 of A. But sounds good there. And then I'm going to jump to that G natural again here and give it a bend toward the G sharp, and then end on the root E. And then I have some chromatic approach chords here. These are abbreviated dominant 7th chords. I have the root, the 7, the flatted 7, and the 3rd. And so this is an A7, and walking chromatically to a B7, which is the 5 in our key. And then we'll end our example on the 1 chord E. So this is E9 again. Let's put part 3 together. That's it for Blues Solo with Comping in the key of E, number 11. I'm Kimberly Allison from Starliner Music, and I hope to see you back on my channel soon.